Hey, what's up, everyone? It's Jenny Dildine, the LDS Mission Coach, and you are listening to the LDS Mission Podcast, episode number 172, Resolving Differences. I'm Jenny, the LDS Mission Coach, and whether you are preparing to serve a mission, currently serving, a returned missionary, or a missionary mama like me, I created this podcast just for you. Are you searching for epic confidence, ready to love yourself and to learn the how of doing hard things? Then let's go. I will help you step powerfully into your potential and never question your purpose again. It's time to embrace yourself, embrace your mission, embrace your life, and embrace what's next. Hey, all right, you guys. Welcome to the podcast. I have to admit, this has been a wrestle for me to record this episode. I don't know what's going on. I don't know. I had kind of a rough week. I just want to be honest with you guys because I think sometimes we look at people and we think, oh, they have it all figured out and this is just easy for them all the time. Totally not true. I know that I need to get this episode recorded so that my assistant can work through it and create content from it and all that good stuff. And so I'm doing it. But I did want to own up to the fact, just so all of you can kind of normalize the fact that, some weeks it's hard to kind of pull yourself along and to get yourself to do stuff, even when you have like really good intentions and you really care about the people that you're serving, even when you really care about the people in your life, like sometimes it feels tough. So here we are. I'm really excited actually now that I've kind of been in a wrestle the last little bit to share this episode with you. It's something I've been thinking about for a little while. And I think this topic is very poignant right now, very important right now for a lot of different reasons that we're going to dive into. One of the reasons I've found this topic so important, resolving differences, and we're going to get into what that means, but is just the climate kind of that we're in. I think a lot of us are talking about a political climate. And so I'm not just seeing it in political areas, but in other aspects on social media and things like that, where we are different from other people. And like, what do we do about that? And how do we handle that? Really in a Christ-like way is kind of what I've been thinking about, and how we can do that with more love. So before we dive into that, I want to remind you that today is the last day to sign up for Mission Prep Plus for October. We are not doing a session in November, December, or January, which means that if you are a missionary getting ready to leave, that in one of those months that you'll want to hop into our October group. So if you have any questions about that, just shoot me an email, jenny@jennydildine.com, and we can get you into the October group, which starts on Monday. Also, I wanted to give a shout out to the missionaries as it is conference weekend. And I always remember when General Conference comes around that my sons who serve missions said, oh, well, conference weekend is the closest thing we get to a vacation on the mission. So, there's a little bit more kind of chilling out and listening to the talks and all of that fun stuff. So I hope that you're getting to do something like that and that you get to relax a little bit and rest a little bit this weekend, as well as take in all of the awesome information and all of the revelation and all of the good feelings. And maybe you might have some not so good feelings too, but I hope you get a chance to kind of slow down and reflect and process all of that and your little mission, quote unquote, vacation. So anything else I need to update on? I have a friend who recently told me, I don't think it's a secret. I've talked about it quite a lot on this podcast, is how I'm not a fan of winter. You see, I'm not a skier or anything like that. And so I basically kind of hold my breath all the way through fall and just sort of dread winter. And I have a friend who is also a coach, by the way, who also is, I'm related to, we're distant cousins, by the way, but she said something to me like, well, on a Marco Polo, she was like, well, I mean, you could just enjoy fall and then not enjoy winter. And again, I was like, one of those moments where I was like, oh, I guess I could do it that way instead of like ruining fall and ruining winter with the way I'm thinking and feeling. Like I actually could just enjoy fall and not enjoy winter. I don't have to ruin both. So that's something I'm also working on, my thoughts and my feelings about fall, because I know many of you are huge fall fans and I'm trying to get there. I did pull out some of my fall candles and smelled them. And I was like, I don't think I'm quite ready for this, because we've still been having nice, beautiful weather here in Boise area. So anyway, so fun fact, I guess just a word to the wise, and that if there's something you're dreading in the future, even though you know it's not going to be your favorite, you don't have to ruin right now just worrying about that thing in the future. So anyway, so that is some of the stuff going on. I'm also singing with my choir that I sing with, millennial choirs and orchestras. I started rehearsing with them a few weeks ago, and we're getting ready for our winter concert, our holiday concert, which is going to be incredible. I always say if you ever get a chance to go to an MCO concert, you totally should. It's really an amazing experience. And so I'm also kind of singing some Christmas music right now, which is fun. So my brain's like, wait, what season are we even in? So anyway, well, okay, let's dive into this, to resolving differences. So the first thing we need to understand is about our brain, which is always a good place to start when we understand the mechanics of how our brain works. So your brain likes to categorize things. It likes to put things into categories, like I like this, I don't like this. It wants to judge things. It wants to take inventory of what's going on around you. It wants to compare things. I think I've shared the analogy before, like your brain needs to be able to judge things and compare things so that it can make a determination about the next move to make. Like if you had a plant that was dying, right? If we didn't have this part of our brain that likes to judge and sort of compare, we wouldn't even know the difference between a healthy plant and a dying plant. Okay, so this is an important part of our brains. And one of the things it likes to do is it likes to actually kind of make these determinations, these judgments, these take in all of this information and then delegate it to an even lower part of the brain where things just become automatic. It's like, so that we don't have to think about it. If you considered what it would be like to take in every single piece of information that comes your way, your brain would be on overload. So instead, what it does is it sort of sets up this system where it can delegate it to the lower brain, and like without you even knowing, it's like we've already made a decision about that. We already know how we think about that. We already know what we want to do about this. And it's actually super necessary for us to have these functions where we categorize things, where we compare things, where we judge things. Because when we do this, then we can see the contrast and know kind of where we want to shift and where we want to make a change. So what we need to understand, first of all, is this is sort of a survival, and we're going to talk more about this, a survival tactic of our brains to categorize things as good or bad. Okay. And this is amazing because then we don't have to make decisions like that in the moment. Like every time we come like up to the gas station to fill our car up with gas, we don't have to tell ourselves like, oh, would it be bad if I stuck this hose in my mouth? Right? I mean, that seems like a totally lame like analogy, but this is the point is that your brain already has decided that a long time ago, delegated it to an even lower part of your brain where it's just automatic. We just like, the gas is good for the car, not good for me, right? Does this make sense? So here's the thing is this is a super useful tactic, important for our survival, helps our brain conserve energy, avoid potential pain. But sometimes this tendency can lead us to divisiveness. Okay. I've noticed lately that we like to separate out people. Now, it's perfectly good for us to know that gas for the car is good and gas for ourselves is not good. But when we start to categorize people, ideas, and feelings that people have as good or bad, it doesn't create a good environment. In fact, it affects cultures of communities, cultures of missions, cultures of wards, even just your everyday interactions with the people that you come in contact with. Now, again, our brain does this to keep us safe. Totally fine that it does this, but I think we need to shine a light on it so that we can start to balance it out and combat this part of our brain just a little bit. What ends up happening, right, is everybody that we come in contact to, when we start to see people or ideas or beliefs or even feelings and emotions as good or bad, we end up on different teams. We end up like, these are the good people and these are the bad people. And this can become very detrimental, not only to our communities and our missions and our wards, but can become very detrimental to ourselves. Okay. So let me give you some examples of what this might sound like in your head or my head too, anybody's. Missionaries who meet their goals are good. Missionaries who don't meet their goals are bad. People who get into one specific school or university are smart. And people who get into a different school or university are not smart. People who think a certain way are right. People who think a different way are wrong. Missionaries who are bold are doing it right. And missionaries who are quiet are doing it wrong. Notice how these categorizations of how we categorize people, like these are literal humans with human thoughts, human feelings. We start to put people in a hierarchy. And this is what I've started to notice is when we let our brain just run on autopilot, it wants to do this naturally. Like, this is really good for me. This is sort of good for me. This is, like, this is okay for me. This is bad for me, right? But when we start to do this with people, we put people in a hierarchy. And if you don't know what I mean by that, it's like there's some people that are better and there are some people that are worse. And then there's all these people in between that might be somewhere in between awesome and not awesome. But when we kind of think black and white like this, like our brain tends to want to do, that sometimes we don't even see the everything in between. We're like, these people are good and these people are bad. Again, it's easier, it's protective. We can delegate some of that work of processing information to the lower brain. But notice what happens. I was thinking about how we do this on a huge macro level. We categorize things like, even in the world, like this, like part of the world to visit is not a great part of the world to visit because it's too cold. And this part of the world is an amazing place to visit because it has the perfect weather, right? We start to categorize that. Or maybe even the people in this part of the world, the way they see something is good, and the way these people in this part of the world see something is bad. Okay. maybe we can move it down a little bit, like especially right now in the United States over the next several weeks with the political climate. For sure, moving it down a little bit of a level here in the US, we're going to have an election here in the next several weeks. And definitely you can see this divisiveness of like these people are good and these people are bad. And depending on which sort of quote unquote team your brain thinks you're on, then that divisiveness, the good and the bad, right, is seen from a different way, just depending. This can happen in our cities. This can happen in our missions. And as we move down kind of to a more micro level, this can happen in our wards. Like maybe it's like a wealth thing even. Like here's the people who are wealthy and here's the people who are not wealthy. Or here's the people who are self-sufficient and here's the people who are not self-sufficient. Or here are the people that have strong testimonies and are in leadership and here are the people who are struggling with their faith. And we inadvertently separate ourselves from other people. And sometimes we even draw like this hard line in the sand. Think about our schools. Think about your friend group or like your district in your mission. You guys, this even happens within ourselves. We even do this within ourselves. We see ourselves as there's part of us that's good and part of it that's bad. Like if I'm happy and content, that's quote unquote good. And if I'm experiencing anxiety, frustration, guilt, or lack of motivation, or maybe I'm trunky or something, that's quote unquote bad. And do you see how it's kind of crazy to think about, you guys? Like when you separate yourself from yourself, how like disorienting that can be. And so here's what I want to say. This isn't what we've been asked to do. We haven't been asked to create divisiveness among us on any of these levels, on the world level, on the United States level, whatever country you live in our communities, in our stakes, in our wards, in our missions. We've asked actually to become as one. And I read a whole bunch of scriptures about this. I'm just going to read a few here. 2 Nephi 26:33. And he doeth nothing, save it be plain unto the children of men, and he inviteth them all to come unto him and partake of his goodness, and he denieth none. So even that person that doesn't think like you or feel like you, he is not denied either. He denieth none that come unto him, black and white, bond and free, male and female. And we could have this list go on and on and on, bold and shy. We could go back to the list I said earlier. People who meet their goals, people who don't meet their goals, people who we see as smart, people who we don't see as smart, people who see it one way versus someone who sees it a different way. He invites all, even all the parts of you, the parts that you don't love as much, he invites all to come unto him. And he remembereth the heathen. And I kind of like that because don't we all feel like heathens sometimes? Like this is, to me, this is like our human brain, this one that likes to separate things, that likes to judge people, that likes to keep ourselves safe and protected. He remembereth him too, you too, her too. And all are alike unto God. To God, there is no teams. To God, there is no like, you're better than this person. To God, there is no hierarchy. They're just us humans down on this earth, bumping into people, doing the best that we can, and trying to figure it out. And sometimes we're going to get it right, and sometimes we're going to get it wrong, and it's all good. That's why we're here, actually. Okay, let me read you another scripture. 2 Nephi 26:25. Behold, doth he cry unto any, saying, depart from me? That really struck me. Does he say that to anybody? Depart from me. And maybe like in your own mind, like kind of check yourself. Are you saying that, even if it's just in your mind, to someone that you see is on a quote unquote different team? But Christ, doth he cry unto any, saying, Depart from me? Behold, I say unto you, nay. But he saith, Come unto me, all ye ends of the earth. I don't think it can be any more clear than that. Come unto me, all ye ends of the earth. So in what ways are we saying, even if it's like subconscious or just biases that we have about certain people or certain beliefs or certain views, in what ways are we saying, depart from me? And really, if we're being honest and we're trying to be Christ-like in our interactions, we shouldn't be saying, depart from me. We should be saying, come unto me. So recently, I heard on a podcast, and this really struck me. He said, or this person said, that right now, all of us, at least in the United States, are going around feeling like half the people hate us. Like, that's just not an awesome culture to live in. It's just not an awesome way to feel when you go to your ward and you have to wonder, like, who's with me and who's against me. Or when you go to your mission and you have to wonder, like, who in this mission is on my team and who's on someone else's team. First of all, it creates fear. And second of all, it doesn't create safety for all of us to be included into the conversation. Divisiveness, this sort of categorizing that our brain likes to do, it's important, but it's not what we've been asked to do with humans, with people in our missions, with our companions, with our families. What we've been asked to do is be as one. And so what can we do about it? What can we do? Here's what I think. Making villains out of people who don't think, feel, or act like you does not create better mission culture or better neighborhoods or better communities or better wards or better stakes for any of us. Also, by the way, seeing yourself as the villain, like you against you, is not useful either. So the question is, how can we balance this sort of like tribal way that our brain operates, the protective way that our brain operates, with more kindness and understanding and listening for others, but also for yourself? And I came up with a few things. 5, I think, is what I came up with. And as I'll always say, as I've said before, this is not an exhaustive list. This is just what I sort of came up as I was typing a few things out. Number 1, understand that you probably don't know the whole story about someone. So it's easy for us to make sort of these categorizations about people and about the way they're showing up and whether they're in a faith crisis or a faith journey or like in church leadership or mission leadership or whatever. We sort of make these assumptions about people. Again, our brain likes to do this, but we don't know the whole story. One of my favorite movies is like the kind of movies where you get to see sort of like the origin story of the villain. And a couple come to mind, right? So there's Wicked, which there's that Broadway play Wicked, where we find out the Elphaba, the witch, like that we all thought after watching The Wizard of Oz was the bad one, right? We find out that she has a whole story and she has pain in her past and she has stuff that she's trying to figure out. And she's actually trying to do some good in the world. Or another example, oh, by the way, I am excited for that movie to come out, to see it, because I think it's coming like out in a live action movie here this winter sometime. And then also the other one I like is Maleficent, who is, you know, in Sleeping Beauty, the Disney movie, we thought Maleficent was the bad one. But we find out later that maybe she wasn't the bad one after all. Like maybe we passed judgment too quickly. Maybe like she had a hard life and things were tough for her. And now I don't want to say, I'm not like advocating, and I always want to be really clear about this. I'm not advocating like put yourself in a situation where you can be emotionally or physically harmed, right? I'm not saying like let's open ourselves up to all the criticism and all of the hate or whatever. That's not what I'm saying. Like, if it does feel like this is not a healthy situation for you to be in, like a good situation to be in, I'm not saying let's do like jump into that and like take away sort of our categorization, because I do think that there are certain situations where people are doing things that would not be good for you. Like if we were saying drinking some gasoline. Okay, it's like the most lame analogy probably, but does that make sense? Like where you can for sure know like from your inside, like this isn't a good situation for me. And I don't think in those situations that we need to be like, well, they just had a hard life and that's not what I'm saying at all. But this can be the first step to sort of resolving these differences and breaking down this divisiveness, okay? Number 2, tell people that you are a safe place to share your opinions. And in order to do this, you're going to have to let go of a little bit of fear. Because again, this is a protective part of our brain. Like, oh my gosh, if I listen to someone else and how they're seeing the mission, or how they're seeing this particular thing, or how their experience, that maybe like, I don't know, I think we sort of think we'll get like pulled to the other side or something like that. And if you're afraid of that, totally you can. You can be afraid. Like nothing wrong with that. But if you feel like you're the type of missionary or the type of person that can really objectively let more people into your circle to hear people's stories, let them know that you are okay to hear that and that you want to listen. Tell people that you're a safe place to be and to talk and share openly about what someone is thinking and feeling. Number 3, if it feels appropriate, I don't know, you can take this with a grain of salt, but if it feels appropriate, address people or call them out a little bit on the division they are creating with their words. Now, I'm not saying that we want to contend with someone. I'm not saying that we want to get in a contentious situation, but what I've seen is that if someone is allowed to just make remarks that continue to divide people and continue to put people lower on this hierarchy and them higher on the hierarchy, if no one says anything, that person tends to, in their subconscious or whatever, start to feel like it's okay. And so it could be useful to just point out, even if you were just like, oh yeah, that's an interesting way to see that. I know there's other people see it in a different way as well. And that's okay too. Like people are allowed to see it the way they want. And actually this person who sees it this way is actually a really awesome person. If you knew them and had a conversation, you would see that too. Right? So we can just sort of break down this idea slowly that there's even teams. Like to God and our Heavenly Mother, like there's no teams. We're all their children. That's the team. We're all their children. So, again, I don't want you to get in like a contentious sort of like back and forth about like the way that you're going to do your tracting on the mission or the way that you're going to approach certain goals or anything. I'm not saying that. But like if there is a district leader that's like kind of calling someone out and being like, oh, well, so-and-so, they're just whatever, and kind of trying to be divisive, you can stand up for that person. You can say, I don't know, like, I wonder where they're coming from. Like they, or if this person is shy or something like that, it's like, oh my gosh, but you must not know her very well because she has so much to offer. Like she's a little more quiet, but she's got some amazing characteristics that we really need in this district. Okay, so does that make sense? Let go. Number 4 is let go of the need to convince. You don't have to fix people, you guys. I know I've said this a few times on the podcast, but you don't need to fix people or change people. Most of the world is not broken. Most of the world has like human thoughts, human ideas. I would dare say a good chunk of humanity really just wants what's best for our communities and for the mission and for our wards and stakes. And so when someone offers an opinion or someone like has an idea about the way they think something should be, we can just say, oh, really? I've never thought about it that way before. What we tend to do is we tend to get in this like, I got to convince them, they got to convince me, or whatever. We get in this like wrestle with them. People get to be different than you. People are supposed to be different than you. People are supposed to have different thoughts, different feelings, different ways that they do things. It's supposed to be this way. Otherwise, our Heavenly Parents would have designed us all the same, which would be very boring. I wanted to say this thing real quick is I had a friend once tell me that I have a purple heart. And I was like, oh, what does that mean? And so in many cases, like especially politically, right, we might say that there's a red side and a blue side, okay? And that there's 2 teams. And she just said, you always have a way of being able to see both sides and love both sides. Like sometimes not even take a side. Or you can take a side, but you for sure see the other side. And so maybe along with number 4, let go of the need to convince or fix or change someone, just be the purple. Because blue and red is purple. So we can just make room. I was thinking about this week with a client. It's like the more room we make to see people and love them as Christ loved, the more space we have to expand ourselves. And it goes both ways. The more we expand ourselves, the more room we have to expand to let people into our circle. And then that's number 5, broaden your circle. There's room for everybody. You don't have to be on the same page. I was having a conversation with someone this week and they're like, well, we got to be on the same page. I'm like, no, you don't. People get to be different. And how do we make room for everybody? I started thinking about the analogy that they talk about in the scriptures about how that we are all the body of Christ and we all have different, like it talks about could the hand do the foot's job or could the foot do the ear's job? And I'm probably quoting it all wrong, but I started thinking about that and how this concept applies to that is when I think Christ asks us to be one, he's not saying be the same and think the same. Like the foot gets to do what the foot does, and the hand gets to do what the hand does, and the ears get to do what the ears do, and the head gets to do what the head does. And so in 1 Corinthians 12:25, it says that there should be no schism in the body. And when I think of schism, I think of like a canyon that like we've become so divisive that there's like these people on this side of the canyon and these people on this side of the chasm, the schism. But it says that there should be no schism in the body, but that the members should have the same care for one another. And whether one member suffer, all the members suffer with it, or one member be honored, all the members rejoice with it. Now ye are the body of Christ, and the members in particular. So meaning the different members are the different parts of the body. So I think we can start to, first of all, in an individual micro level, start to accept ourselves in the way that our brain wants to kind of put ourselves into categories. And then we can do this with friends. And then we can do this in our wards and our stakes and in our missions and in our interactions online and all of that stuff. And I really think we can change. When we change and we are done being divisive, we can broaden our circle and invite all, and not say to anybody, depart from me, but like, come on in. You get to be here too. As I was writing my weekly email last week, the words of this hymn came to mind as I was writing it, and it's Sisters in Zion. It's that hymn. So I will include the word people, but it says, as people in Zion, which, we all have learned is one heart, one mind, will all work together. It doesn't say we'll all be the same. I think the one heart and one mind means one heart and one mind in Christ. Doing it the way he did, which was to include everybody and invite all. And then it says to do whatsoever is gentle and human, to cheer and to bless in humanity's name. I love how it says gentle and human, because that's just why we're all here. We're all just here being human. So, in conclusion, what is the best way to resolve differences? In my opinion, we don't need to resolve them. The best way to resolve differences and to stop having them make such like a cavernous canyon in between, quote unquote, teams, is to understand that we have them, and that's okay. We don't have to resolve anything. You get to come, and 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 we're all going to be in this together, in this human experience where we get to be different. And we stop putting people in these categories. Make sense? Because our Heavenly Parents don't do that. And if we're trying to be like them, then that's what we should be doing too. All right? I hope this helps you. It's sure been like a really beautiful experience for me to think about this and to really hopefully try to convey some of the things that have been on my heart. I hope there's a little something that you can take away. And just sending you all the love. And thanks for being a part of my circle. Thanks for being here. And let's invite more, all right, to our circle and your circle and their circle, and just broaden our circle so it's so big that it just gets to include everybody. All right, everyone, have the most amazing week, and we will talk to you next time. Serving a mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints can present a unique set of challenges, and many of those challenges you might not even see coming. So you're going to want a unique set of solutions. It's easier than you think to overcome worry and anxiety, serve the successful mission you've always dreamed of, and navigate your post-mission experience with confidence. That is why I created some amazing free goodies that I'm sharing in my show notes. Maybe you'll want to grab the free training for preparing missionaries, my video course for RMs, or maybe you and I should hop on a free strategy call. If you're ready to take your preparedness to serve or your preparedness to come home to the next level, then go grab one of those freebies. And in the meantime, no matter which part of the mission experience you are involved in, just know that Jenny, the LDS mission coach, is thinking about you every single day.